there's a new collective in town. So now if you want to subscribe essentially to Georgia football,
You can. Yeah.
you can.
So last week they announced the new collective. It's called Glory Glory. And it's an interesting case, right? Because Georgia, when all of the revenue sharing stuff passed last year, Georgia shut down its collective that was in place. It was called the Classic City Collective. Georgia thought that everything was going to go through kind of the university going forward, the revenue sharing and everything. And so they shut the collective down that they
Yeah.
built in Athens.
Georgia thought people would actually follow the rules that they agreed
Right.
upon.
They really did. And what they're finding out is that nobody's paying attention to the rules, that collectives are just as powerful as they are. And Georgia kind of suffered for that a little bit. Georgia's had a little bit of hard time on some of the transfer portal guys and some high profile recruits that they may have gotten in the past. And I think part of it was because they didn't know exactly where the money was. When they shut down the collective, it was in the university's hands, but what can they actually do at the university level? They kind of, and Georgia, Jerry Moorhead has been at one of the forefronts of supporting doing things the right way. You know, he's been one of the spokesmen. So I think they were kind of in a lost place. So reconstituting this collective is an effort to get their tails in gear because some people, and I know as Georgia fans, we've kind of felt a little bit that they've kind of fallen behind a little bit on that spending.
Absolutely.
And so maybe
I
it's
mean,
time to, get it in gear.
you look at the top recruits that Georgia, or I guess the pattern that you see, right? Like these top tier, number one at their position, 5-star recruits committed to Georgia, long-term commitments, multiple commitments to Georgia. And then what happens? Right at the end, Texas comes in, just outspends. Miami comes in, outspends.
Vanderbilt.
Vander freaking built.
Right.
But also playing time, that was kind of a little different, but still same type of pattern,
Right.
And so to your point, like that makes a lot of sense why Georgia would have been scrambling for money at those points, because there was no collective, there was no extra NIL.
Right. And like I said, I think it's just them understanding that, hey, we've got to keep kind of a third party group that's going to handle this because we thought we could handle it all in house. If everything was going through the rules, it's better in the hands of the university to run it. But they thought that everybody else was going to follow suit, that across the country, people were going to shut down their collectives, run it through the university. Now they knew that some are going to spend more, but that's not the case at all. These big collectives at some of these big schools with huge donors have stayed separate and are continuing to fund programs. And if the NCAA isn't going to fight it and enforce the rules, because remember, last summer, the CSC initially announced that payments through collectives that weren't for valid NIL purposes were not going to be eligible. And then there was like that court for like 2 weeks. People were like, and then they switched it. So it's just a change in direction, but it's good. If you're a Georgia fan, it's showing that the commitment is still there, that, this might have been an anomaly and maybe we are going to pony up some money in the cases where it felt like we might not have.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we do see a change and start landing some of these top guys. It's just it I don't know. As a fan, it just feels better when you hear your team landed a top guy.
Yeah. So as part of this launching of this new collective, they had a pretty lengthy interview with Kirby Smart where he talked about some of this stuff. And you haven't seen Kirby talk much about it since the season ended, but there were some things I thought that was really interesting in that interview. Transcripts come from Dog Nation, but this was the telling right at the beginning. How did he describe the end of the 2025 season? Utter effing chaos. He dropped that right at the beginning. He said, "It's been wild to say the least. So the portal's going
Now,
on when the season ended, and probably the hardest part is managing our roster. We took days, weeks to get it fixed. So since the game, we had a goal of keeping the players on our roster that we could. We went through agents, players, meetings, and meetings to retain our roster, which is, I think, a battle that we won. So Kirby said it right there. It was chaos, and their goal was to keep the players on the roster. Georgia only had 13 guys transfer out. Their goal was not to go out and get a bunch of players out of the portal. They
Right.
were trying to keep the guys they had.
Right. Which makes a lot of sense because you look at the team last year, very young team, the youngest team in a long time at Georgia, but very talented. You know, a lot of 5-star, 4-star players, freshmen starting, making huge impacts on the line, on the offensive line, defensive line, secondary. Really all over the field. So you spent your time and effort developing these players to play in your system. You don't want to lose that because that's an investment that you made.
Yeah.
And working to just retain your talent is is really the best strategy that Georgia's going to have because Georgia's going to recruit really well
Yeah.
no matter what. Because there was an ACC, a person anonymously said the only way to beat Georgia on the recruiting trail is to
To
outspend them.
overpay him. Yeah.
Yeah, like overpay.
Yeah. Because
And
there was that thing that
yeah,
came out and they were talking about they collected information and they're talking about who spends the most and which schools were the wisest with their money. And Georgia was listed as one of those schools that spent their money wisely. Um, I also like this was another quote that Kirby had in here about what their message was to the kids they were trying to retain. He said, "We reiterated to them that we wanted them here because I think a lot of portal kids is to get enamored with what's out there. They constantly look at their phones. They go down their feeds and all they see is other people jumping ship, going other places. It's the whole grass is greener. Is the grass greener or not? We think the grass is pretty damn green where we are." I really like that message because in this new world of NIL, Georgia is one of the programs that's continuing to push developing guys. And if you're going to continue to say, "Hey, we want you to come here and develop you," we really want guys that want to be here that want to stay. That's what their message is pushing. So, you know, we'll see where they go. He talked about some of the portal additions that they really liked. He talked about Amarius Williams, really liked what they got out of him from Auburn. They talked about Isaiah Canyon and how they recruited him in high school and they really wanted to get him, but he went to Georgia Tech and Kirby gave him credit. He said he got better. He got better than what we saw him out of high school. And so that's why he's
yeah.
here. Um, so Georgia, at least as
And
a
and,
program,
and
feels good. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
love that. I absolutely love it. And I think what Georgia did in the portal this time is probably the best all around portal grab that they got. Last year was great, filling some gaps on the receiver, but getting a DN pass, legit pass rusher, that's huge to pair with an already really good defensive line,
Yeah.
and to get a potential number one receiver
Yeah, a
out of
guy to
this
take
too.
over for Colby Young there because we don't really have a big
Yeah,
body like that on campus right now. Yeah, Canyon's a
that's
good
not a
fit.
tight end.
Yeah, right. Um, but just, as we said, all of this effort by Georgia is to continue to push retaining of talent and growing talent. And with it, some people were down on Georgia a little bit. And they were down on Georgia's recruiting class last year. Georgia was number 6 in the country, which for most people, that's great. But when you're used to finishing between 1 and 3 every year, finishing 6, losing a couple of recruits right at the end, they lost Curtis right there during the week of signing day. They lost Marchese.
Cantwell.
They lost him on signing day to Michigan. So you lost a couple of guys and 2 guys that had been committed for a while. Um, but so
Well, don't forget Jackson Cantwell.
Well, he was never committed, but they just got outbid for him.
Right.
Yeah, other guys too. But what you've seen here is Georgia's got a little juice going on recruiting right now. Last week they got a commitment from Keeman Spell, number 1 running back in the class of 2027 from Pennsylvania, thought to be a heavy lean to Penn State. He comes down on a visit to Georgia.
I think I think he was originally committed to Penn State before Franklin got
Oh,
fired.
really? Um,
Yeah.
Georgia's looking really strong for, and we always look strong for tight ends, but the number 2 tight end in the 2027 class, Brock Williams, looking really good for him. They've got a commitment from
Great first name.
yeah, yeah,
Great first
for a tight
name.
end at Georgia, hell yeah. They've already got commitments for the number 7 offensive tackle in the country, Kelsey Adams. They're looking really strong with the number 8 offensive tackle, Joshua Sam Appel, who is a big freaking dude. They got a commit from Dante Wright, number 5 cornerback in the country. They're in on a lot of other guys. They are making moves,
Yeah.
and if this keeps up, and you know what, the difference is, I think in this class you're starting to see is they're hitting on guys or getting close on guys on the offensive side of the ball. We're used to seeing big time defensive recruits, and we get some good offensive guys here or there, but they're after some big targets on the offense. So a lot of momentum in the Georgia recruiting department right now.
Man, got to give some praise to Georgia for what they're doing on the offensive line. I mean, you look at what they did last year. You had 3 freshmen playing on the offensive line, 4 at the end of the year, right? And now you're just adding depth with huge talent guys coming in. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
that's
you're probably going to see a true freshman start on the line next year too. Ogboko is probably going to be in there
mhm.
at one of your tackles. And then, you've got Glover, obviously, and you've got Juan Gaston. So, they both played as true freshmen last year. So Georgia's young offensive line is going to be really, really good and really, really big next fall.
Yeah, and I'm sure Tolliver will get into the rotation, give Bobo some breaks.
Yeah. Well, and Erskine's back. So you've got a senior stalwart. You've got Bobo, who played out of his mind, most of the year up until the end of until he got hurt, obviously. Glover, freshman All American. Gaston should have been a freshman All American. I don't know why he wasn't. And then,
Yeah.
like I said, then you've just got to find a tackle, and you've got this huge Ogboko 5-star guy coming in. Things are looking good.
Yeah. So I got 2 questions for you.
All right.
So on that topic of Gaston, not getting, freshman awards, do you think it could be that it's because there's this notion that Georgia is down because Georgia's not winning national championships?
I don't know. It
That's
is
what it feels
it
like.
is interesting to watch all these. They're talking about preseason expectations for next year, and Georgia was number 2 going into the playoffs, looked really strong, and played a good game against Ole Miss, and they lost a team that they'd already beaten. Georgia didn't lose to a team that they didn't beat last year. Um, and it's interesting, and they didn't win a national championship, and so, but they've had buys both years, and people are like, oh, they haven't won a playoff game in a couple years. Well, they had buys. They won SEC championships both years, and so is Georgia down when they had the youngest roster in the country and they just retained it all? I don't know, but it seems like the national confidence is shaking a little bit. So hey,
Yeah.
get the attention off us. Push all that expectation onto Texas. Push all that
Hey,
expectation onto A&M and in Oklahoma. Let them have it.
I'm I love that the rest of the nation thinks that Georgia is down. Let them keep pushing that narrative. Kirby's just going to use that as fuel to the fire,
Absolutely.
and it will work. It will
Absolutely.
absolutely work. Okay, second question. What do you think of the logo for the new collective?
It's pretty cool. It's a
It's pretty sweet.
it's a mix of the old school and it's not Nike-fied, and I like it. I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I, I got to get a hat.
I think you get one if you join the collective. I think for your
Yeah,
$20 a month, I think you get some stuff. So
yeah, maybe I can make it a business expense.
I'm always looking for tech.
Always, always. To beat the man, you got to beat the man. All right. So if you're a dog fan like us, hit that like button, tell your friends, hit that subscribe button, chat us up in the comments. Let us know what you think. Where's Georgia going? What do you think about Georgia's recruiting this off season and how we're looking going into the season?